Garth, thank you so much for coming to the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Ed.
Hey, no problem. No problem. It actually took us an extra month. You had other things come up, and it's just happy to finally get you on the show.
Amen.
A couple of things I want to talk about today is any Edison moments, which is, our greatest accomplishments come from our greatest defeats. If you had any of those along the way when you're building your empire. And, because usually things don't just happen right away for us real easy. Things happen, and then we learn from that to move forward. A couple of other things I want to go over today is your book, which is, let's get that 0 to 100 million. Finally got it right that time. Sales Blueprint. If you're good with that. And then you said you wanted to give away some books. You want to do that now? So you want to
say so everybody who likes the messaging and would like to follow some of the recommendations and the blueprint from my book, which is basically accumulation of my learnings over the last 25 years. And it's endorsed by the head of sales of Google, Microsoft, Amazon. So basically extracted a lot of knowledge from a lot of people that are way smarter than myself, put into the book. It's a bestseller. It's on Amazon. Costs $30 for a paperback. But for the first 50 listeners of this show looking to scale the revenue, scale sales, grow business, they can go to my website, GaryGarth.com, or my business website, elevate.io. Apply the coupon code Inner Edison, all small, and you'll get discounted the book from $30 to $0, absolutely free. So I hope everybody takes advantage of that.
Gary, I appreciate that. That's really great for our listeners. And by the way, that's ELEV8.io in case you didn't fully get that. And Gary Garth is GaryGarth. Right? Yeah, because it's easy, but you never know. No one ever can get my last name correct. So I always want to make sure we spell it out for people.
Yes, that's a good point.
All right. So I read your bio. And you're currently in Colombia, right? That's what we were talking about. And for somebody like myself from the United States, it's different than somebody like yourself from Denmark. You can go anywhere, right? Because it seems like that. How did you find Colombia? Is that part of your story to get there?
I found it at first. I found Nicaragua. To be frank, I moved from Denmark 15 years ago to Nicaragua, Central America. That is. To create a company, and throughout that process, this was back in 2016 or so, I was living in Miami. I lived there for 3 years, and one day, we at that point we had been growing fast. We were on that Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing company in US 4 years ago, and we were number 4, I believe, in Miami that year. So anytime when you're in those kind of lists, you're basically a prospect for everybody and the mother wants to sell you software, accounting services, or programs or whatever. And then out of the many that showed up to our companies, one day this organization called Pro Medellin showed up, and they said, "Gary, you guys, congratulations on making the list, blah blah blah, all this stuff. Why don't you consider setting up a satellite division in Medellin, Colombia, just like you have in Nicaragua?" We did our research. And I said, well, for XYZ reason. And then they came back and said, Medellin has a vision of becoming the Silicon Valley within the next 10 years of Latin America. And there's all these different initiatives, tax exemption benefits, support to set up companies for foreigners and all that, especially if you work in tech and that scene. So it was always at the back of my mind. And then back in 2020, I sold that company, sold my shares in that company. So I was like, maybe let me try to go to Colombia and check that out. And I came down, absolutely loved the culture, the people, the country, and there's a ton of talent here. So I was like, let me try to create a 2.0 version of what I've done before in a slightly different shape, fashion, and direction. That's why I'm here. I've been here for almost 2 years now. Go back and forth between Tampa, Florida, and here all the time, but this is home now.
Wow. So the other place that you go to is in Florida, is what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
Yes. Okay. We set up an office there, and my brother and family lives there, so I like to go there as much as possible.
Well, I'm in Florida in November. Let me know if you're gonna be there.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. My biggest problem which probably would be my problem for Colombia, Nicaragua, is the humidity.
Yes. And you know what? That's why I love Medellin, because Nicaragua, I was, excuse my French, sweating my balls off all the time, and I couldn't. I'm from Denmark. I'm a Viking. I enjoy the cold weather.
Right.
So
That's
I
me.
don't like to sweat all the time and go to the beach, stuff like that. But Medellin is the city of eternal spring, they call it as well, because it's in a valley. So it has that perfect weather for me. Sitting here with a hoodie, it's comfortable. You go outside. I like that. It's never
What's
cold. It's not like, sorry?
I sorry, I thought you stopped for a second. I apologize. I was going to ask you what's the average temperature, but then you're going to tell me Celsius. So I won't have a clue.
Yes, that's right. About 20 Celsius. That's
Let me get my Google out and figure that out. How did you? All right. So you grew up in Denmark. Is that what I'm?
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
Right. And so how did you get into? I don't want to. We only have 30 minutes, and I don't want to waste a lot of time on a lot of background because I'll put that in the beginning. But how did you get into sales?
How to get into sales? It was actually, I believe I was about 18, 19 years old. I took a summer job at a call center, aggressive outbound call center, one of those jobs where you had the handheld phone up to the ear. You didn't even put it down. You start calling the next one. You had a call sheet and you're just trawling through contacts. No sophistication, just pure outreach. Every time I would come with suggestions, ask feedback, my manager would be shut up and down, right? That was kind of the setup. The only reason I continued, because where there's a lot of young folks, apparently not as intelligent as I would imagine somebody that in terms of the paychecks that they pulled off every month. So I was like, holy shit, you can make a lot of money in sales. And that was my driver, because I was hungry to, at that point, earn a lot of money, buy a car and all the flashy clothes and shoes, you know how teenagers are, right? So that kind of sustained me, even though I sucked at it. I was the least sales profile you would imagine. A lot of people say that great salespeople are made, not born. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm probably proof of the opposite, because I was introverted, shy, not good at explaining myself, purposeful positioning, all that. Forget it. I developed that along the way. So.
Yeah, I think salesmen aren't made. They're not necessarily. The best salespeople are introverts. Be honest with you, because they have to learn how to deal with other people, and they actually learn about the person and how certain things are. That's just my take on it. I'm very private until I got on radio, because I own a mortgage company, but I got into radio a few years ago to educate people on the purchasing process in the mortgage industry, and now everybody knows everything about me, right? There's no secrets, so it makes you come out, and that's like, a lot of people, I don't go on stage in public. Get on radio, you won't have a problem. Everybody will know everything about you. So,
and I agree with the notion, by the way. Yes.
Yeah. All right. And so that was your first into sales, and then where did you go from that?
Yeah. So after I had already I took a sales job after I started as a serial entrepreneur when I was 19. I ran a company for a year, 2, sold it. Very lucky. I was just the right time at the right place with a product that blew up. And then I spent all the money, used all the money, and that's when I needed to take that sales job. So after a while, after a couple of different sales positions, I landed at a company with basically selling yellow pages under the notion of it being a yellow page, but it was actually not the authentic, original, official yellow page. So the value was not equivalent to how we were selling it. So it basically was selling hot air, right? Of course, it had value and they got some business, but I saw in this company that they were selling a ton. It was a subpar product. And I learned how to sell and leverage all the principles of persuasion and, learn how you can sell subpar products if you just are very good at positioning things. So I was like, wait, what happened if me and my sales manager, let's quit this job, start a better product, better solution, and leverage those sales skills? And that meant when we continue with my entrepreneurial journey and then start my own basically sales outbound call centers. And then that grew. We got hired by the biggest cell phone companies in the country. I had about 150 agents, pure cold calling businesses and offering them phone subscriptions. That blew up. It was, just again at the right time, at the right moment. And then afterwards, I got an opportunity to become partner in Radio Energy, the largest radio network in Europe, in the Danish franchise division, to run the sales that have been. It was coincidental. It was the neighbor of that call center I was operating. They were like fascinated. They had a struggling sales team. They were bleeding losses after 5 years in a row. And then they saw across the street this young hip company that, everybody's showing up in maybe that's a little old boy suits and flashing, and everybody's quote unquote successful. And so like, how the heck did these guys build this sales culture up? So they asked if I wanted to sell for them. We wanted to sell for them. It's like, I'm not selling anything for you guys unless you make me partner in the project. We became that, and then I had 5-6 years of run with that where we grew revenue. And then again, by sheer coincidence, again, a consultant for the Danish government who was related to my former partner, what they were having dinner, and he was like, Gary, you're very good at marketing and sales. And he was like, have you ever considered taking your skills across the Atlantic, set up a shop in Nicaragua? There's a lot of bilingual, fully, dual citizen folks that resided back to Nicaragua, who's lived most of their life in U.S. and came back to live in Nicaragua for family reasons, that you could leverage that talent pool and then target the United States with call center solutions, outsourcing, business process optimization, etc. And my response back then was like, Nicaragua, is that in Africa? I had no idea what it was, but he positioned it effectively. You could get investment subsidy upwards of $1 million back then if you had a successful company, if you could create job impact in the country, because it's a third world country. Mm-hmm. If you create a social impact and create innovation by marketing services, technology, all that kind of stuff. So it would grow the economy overall. You could get that investment subsidy. That was the Danish government strategy. So we applied, we got approved, and then within 3 months, I basically moved from Denmark, which is probably one of the most developed countries in the world. At least it's ranked always as top 3 when it comes to, a system that works, etc. To a third world country, completely different beast, and started a new project. And then we grew that for 10 years. We're one of the largest resellers for Google and Microsoft. And after so much shares in the company, I said, that's when I started this project next.
Well, and all right, so for me, I've been in sales my whole life. I started when I was young, worked for a company there. Have you ever seen the movie Glengarry Glen Ross?
Oh, yeah, ABC, baby.
Exactly. I worked for a guy like that when I first got in the business, and that's how I learned. And in 3 years of what he did and put us into, I learned so much I couldn't have learned in 20 years of business, to where when I left and created my company, it's the same thing. We created one of the first call centers in Southern California for the mortgage industry. And we did different, for the refinance booms that we went through during, and it was just perfect timing with direct mail and everything else that we did. It was perfect at the time.
Yeah.
But what I'm seeing right now is most of the people that are here in the United States they have no idea how to sell. The young people have no idea how to talk to each other. They have no, what I mean? Where when you have immigrants come in and they go for the same job, they do so much better than and I can say this because I'm from the United States, than our kids who have had everything handed to them. Working in where you are and with your new company, do you have the same sales skills? Do you use the same stuff there? And do you see that same where people are more grateful for the job and everything else? I know there's a lot there to unpack.
So I would say about 60-70% of our staff is actually Americans. There's a lot of expats living here, basically maybe want to live across in a different country, venture abroad, a different quality of life. And so I would say they're all appreciative of the job. I would say from a generational level, what I see, I recognize what you see. Maybe if you haven't come up from the school of hard knocks and, you pushed in to get a certain job, you had to prove yourself, there was less options on the table. I think that's where you learn more sales skills. And I see it especially now that I'm, as a part-time angel investor and having a couple of companies under my helm. I sit in on solutions demos, so we have to buy a new piece of software or a contract with a new company, and I just feel that the sales reps are somewhat mechanical. They're not really passionate about the solution. It's like that they took the job by necessity, but they're always scouting for new jobs. They don't really understand the product, the solution in depth. And I'm obviously generalizing. There's a lot of stars out there, and I've had a lot of great experiences. But I see, compared to in the past, there's there's tendency as per your observation. So I recognize that. So I think sales may be a forgotten skill set. It has the wrong perception. It's like a used car salesman. That's not sales. It's like you said, it's somebody who's introverted, who's good at uncovering needs, finding solutions, persuading people with data, statistics, and compelling arguments on how my solution can impact your life, how it can drive value. That is sales, right? It's you're basically a solutions architect. Is a better way to frame it.
Yeah, you're educating them on what they're trying. Persuasion is you're helping somebody to make the decision that they wanted to make anyway. Help them get to that part. They want to buy it. They want to get it. You're just helping them get it. Where a lot of people these days think persuasion is a bad word, and it's not. Manipulation is a bad word, right? Yes. You talked about originally. That's kind of what we did in our first jobs, was potentially manipulate people into buying what we were selling them, not necessarily persuading them, right? I'm just saying we learned the old way, right? Which you can't do now because you go to jail. Right. But what I'm getting at is I've seen, in the past few years here in the United States, I don't know if it's the same over there, people were so used to the low-lying fruit that it was so easy. They were order takers. They weren't really salespeople. And now we have a totally different market, especially in the real estate and mortgage industry, where you actually have to be a salesperson to actually do stuff and hone your skill. And that's what I've been doing, is working on with other people to hone that skill and get them back to where they should be. And I kind of see, and that's why I liked your book, the 0 to 100 million. Is just a certain things in there. I'm like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I learned from Zig Ziglar. I learned from Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, the old gurus of it. And where the new people these days are using some of their stuff and acting like it's theirs. But in reality, if you go back, they created this stuff.
They're the OGs. That's their origin story. Absolutely.
All right. So so now with your new company, Elevate 8, right? What do you do there? And then we'll get into your book.
Yeah, absolutely. So after I sold the shares in my last company, I spent almost about a year trying to figure out what I want to be when I grew up. I made a lot of money, and that didn't necessarily make me happy and fulfilled. I had a big house at the beach and didn't do anything. I thought that was the vision, that was the dream. It wasn't. So I wanted, for various reasons, start investing in different projects, and I came across addiction treatment and mental health care, which is a staggering problem in the United States, for example, but worldwide. 1 out of 3 Americans is facing mental health issues, some shape or form, anxiety, depression, and there's about 23 million Americans that struggle with addictions. And if you have the ripple effect of the families, the kids, the mother of the addicts and so forth, it's a lot of people that are impacted. And then I had a good friend near me who died from that, family member struggling, and wanted to get into that. Said, okay, why is it that there's so many people that are suffering? There's a lot of rehab centers out there, mental health care facilities. They only admit 10% of people that are facing problems. I mean, 10%, 1 out of 10 people is basically receiving treatment for the problems. And so I decided to invest in a few centers. The more I looked into it, the more I start seeing patterns of why many of these centers don't necessarily are operating at full census, a full occupancy rate. And I knew from my experience in my last company, we managed about 300 million in paid search, like Google Ads, Microsoft Ads, stuff like that. We have 5,000 advertisers. I enable other marketing agencies to sell for Google and Microsoft, about 200. So I kind of knew that you could do all the marketing in the world. You can generate leads, and you can have the phone ringing nonstop. But if, for instance, you don't have the right system in place, if your CRM is not configured appropriately, if you don't have the right workflows, etc., those leads will fall through the cracks, and that will impact your ROI. And then furthermore, based on my book and best practice, I also know if you don't have the right sales process architecting, I call it, making sure that those lead convert at the highest rate possible, in low margin games or certain industries where there's high fierce competition, you will just never become profitable in the event of addiction treatment, operate at 100% occupancy rate. So I went back and started Elevate because I say, okay, wait a minute. I went into this industry. I went into this industry to actually help a lot of people. I wanted to impact this industry. Maybe for me, the right way to do it is not to open up my own centers. Maybe it's enabling all these great facilities, providers that can have the potential to help way more people that their current capacity is allowing them, by enabling them with lead generation, marketing systems, CRM technology, and also sales process architecting, so that they have a 360-degree solution. So that's what we do here at Elevate. That was my motivation. That's why I'm operating basically at a motivation level higher than ever before throughout my last companies, because now I feel that there's a sense of purpose that is driving. It's not just about growth or hitting this next list of winning some awards or making X amount of millions. It's like, no, actually I get to touch a lot of people and help a lot of people that are suffering indirectly through this work.
Well, did you get into this? You said a friend of yours had an issue, right? Is this something?
Yeah, he died.
My
best friend.
Yeah. I'm a veteran, right? So we deal with a lot of veterans who commit suicide a day because of issues from that and because of PTSD, but then they get into addictions because of that without dealing with it. So I totally understand it. And that's one of my big push this year. I do a challenge 22, which is reaching out to 22 people a week. There's 22 veterans a day that pass away, but you can't. So I have people reach out to 22 people a week. That way you can talk to them, see how they're doing. And just that usually helps people just by having the reach out. And so that's the challenge we do. I love that. Yeah. All right. So we know about your new company and what you do. Is there anything else you want to add there? But it sounds to me like everything you do there is what's in your book.
Yeah, everything we're doing here, we're basically practicing what we preach.
Right.
We have a vision to become the biggest in the world in the category within the next 2 years. Humble ambition, become the biggest operating out of Colombia as well. And then we use obviously the book to educate a lot of prospects and companies we work with. We also launched this Goals Grid and Greatness Planner, and basically it's many of our rehab clients or companies we work with, they also use it internally. So it's basically, planner where you can, document your goals. You can break down your goals into tangible action items, deadlines, and tie it up with a purpose. So you can, again, we're trying to help people, step out of depression or addiction by having, sometimes you just need a compelling why. Sometimes you need to exercise gratitude every day, like the planner enforces. Sometimes you need to establish some healthy morning and evening rituals. So it's not a silver bullet for anything, in my opinion. After always chasing all these hacks throughout my life and trying everything, it's about doing what's needed, being disciplined about it, and then executing, and then at the same time being humble and exercise gratitude. That goes a long way, and that's what we try to do in the planner. So internally in my company, as I give it for all my employees, we use it in every morning huddle. Every time I have a one-on-one with the employee, they said they want to make more money, then we can manage us. Like, okay, great, let's create a plan for it. Let me tie up your personal goals with our company goals. And then the rehab centers we work with, they give them to the patients so that when they check out, they have actually a plan of action. So that once you throw them into the old environment that's full of bad friends, connections, negative patterns, and memories, at least they have something they can lean on to and say, okay, this is my plan on how to break these negative patterns and create a new life for myself. So I'm very passionate about that project as well. We use it in Elevate context because it's so related. And that's what has, led me on this journey.
Right. Well, I'm just, from what I'm hearing from you today and how you've actually took a recovery and actually utilize a full sales environment around it, which they've never done before that I've known of, where CRM, you said everything that you normally do when you want to keep in touch with your clients. They are your clients, and they're going to be your clients forever, and hopefully not addicted, but be there for you for the future. And you want to be there to help them down the road with whatever else. That's kind of what I'm hearing and seeing. Is that correct?
That's 100% correct.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'm done. No, I'm just kidding. It's funny because I think a lot of people don't measure the customer lifetime value of a client. You know, they think things are transactional instead of relationship. And I think, you know, and that is the worst way to deal with and I still think some companies still think that way, right? That it's a relationship. You're building relationships over time. And I was on a podcast, was it today or yesterday? And the lady was a CPA out of Texas. She asked me, do you stay in contact with your clients? It's like, of course.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is the cornerstone of profitability and growth, right? I previously and still have worked with a lot of software as a service and technology companies that, because of my book, contract me for consulting or marketing services or sales process architecting. And you know, they're funded and they have VCs in the background. They're very focused and on, you know, what is the customer acquisition cost ratio between that and your lifetime value? Because then it's simple math. How much are you investing in acquiring a customer and how much do they turn out to be? And the more you can stretch that by enhancing the customer journey, improving the customer onboarding process, measuring the customer satisfaction ongoing, providing rewards, incentivizing them to grow, stay. And there's a lot of things that I put in my book that you could do. That is like, I mean, it's just the game changer, right? I think it was the Harvard Business Review that said, like, if you are able to improve your customer retention rate by a merely 5%, 5%, you're able to increase your profits by between 25 and 95%. I mean, it's just exponential growth that can be experienced by applying those. So yes, do we stay in clients? I think here at Elevate, I mean, I'm almost obsessive. Sometimes my team's like, seems a little bit over the top. People got a business to run. Well, at least we show we're here for them and we're ready to take on task, support, whatever is needed to help them grow. And I think a lot of businesses can move at a way faster pace by embracing those principles, because it's not just about throwing more money towards marketing and sales departments. And you know this, like, hey, we get more leads, or the leads are not hot enough. Well, how about we just grow those existing customers, right? They're right in front of us, right? And once they become true customer advocates, guess what? Referrals is not going to be something that's going to be difficult to extract from them. It's going to come organically. So that would be my 2 cents on something everybody should be talking about, especially in these challenging days now where everybody's concerned about inflation rates and interest rates and recession, what God knows what. It's just like, you know, focus on your customer. That goes a long way.
I totally agree. I mean, but like you're saying, focus on your customer, but the leads part, you know, I want the good leads. I want the Gary leads. The issue, it's the leads aren't weak, you're weak, right? You know, the old stage, right? Yeah. I got them all, dude. I watched the movie a few times. I have them down.
I watched it a lot of time. Yeah, but on that, and there's simple solutions for that too, which is just a class. The reason I bring it up is because I speak with so many companies, and 9 out of 10 say that it's not a 1984 situation, Glengarry Ross. It happens still, and it's because there's not proper sales and marketing alignment. It's because sales and marketing operates with 2 different metric systems, or 2 different KPIs. It's because they may be not pushing in the same direction. Maybe they don't have a lead scoring system so that they objectively can score every opportunity instead of just saying like how it is, and create the right system in place. So, you know, maybe we don't call leads, right, because they went to a website once. Sales just wants to get on top of them. Maybe there's a system where say, okay, once a prospect has come to our website, they've read 3 blog posts, they spent more than 10 minutes on site and downloaded 1 white paper, whatever, that's when you're qualified to call them. You know, they're somewhat engaged, or maybe they need to hit other touch points through email and LinkedIn before we call them. Now there's a universal agreed upon strategy, and it just becomes way easier to push and grow revenue when sales and marketing is fully aligned, I would say.
I want to key in one thing you said, call them. The thing I see today is, I emailed them. No, did you call them? Right. No, I text them. I'm sorry. Did you call them? Right.
Amen, brother. Pick up the goddamn phone.
That's right. Oh, it's you.
Everybody's emailing. I don't know about you, but I have I don't know how many unread emails. I have to create segments 600. And filters just to make sure clients doesn't drown in the flood stream of emails I'm receiving. Call is actually a disruptor nowadays versus positive disruptors.
Dude, I sold by the phone for 18 years. I have learned the tones and inflections in people's voices and how to hear stress and everything else. The only way you can know that is by talking to them. The only way to the email and the text is what's going on in their head. When you're on the phone with them, it's actually you're talking at the same, you understand what each person is saying because you're there and you can listen to what's going on in the background. And and that's what when I was telling you we're doing a sales thing now here because of that. I heard it in my company with just my staff. It's like, did you call them? And it was the same thing. No, I emailed them. I texted them. I'm sorry. That's not what I asked. You can do all that too, but first call them, then send an email saying I left a voicemail regarding this. And then if you don't hear anything, text them. There's time. You have to make a relationship with that client and build that relationship. And the easiest way is a phone call.
Correct. Right. And that's to your point earlier about maybe, and I don't want to stereotype, but Gen Z or Gen whatever, they're so accustomed to social media nowadays. Everything is chat, everything is text messages, right? When I was a kid, I didn't have a cell phone, right? So everybody's chatting back and forth, right? You can't build a rapport. You can't, truly connect and understand, the emotional triggers and, how they react to certain things, if not over the phone. So yes, meeting, phone, Zoom, whatever, but get to have an actual conversation. Understand the person on the other side.
Yep. Because the biggest problem is the kids these days, they'll go like a week texting back and forth about something. Then in a 2-minute conversation, they could be done with it, right? It's like, come on, people. And that's that was my comment earlier is I have a friend of mine who runs an insurance company and she's in Orange County, LA area. And she's an immigrant and she deals with, and we were having a conversation like this. And I said that, do you find that? And she's like, yes, totally. People who come here as immigrants and can work in my company and do this, they're more, they thank me for the job where other people in that area, that's just a weird area, Orange County, LA and San Diego. They're, and they, she's saying the other ones expect you to do this for them, expect you to do this. And that's not how it is. It's sales. You need to earn to be, and again, California is a little weird. So we'll just leave it at that. I'm in California. I can say that.
Yeah.
All right, Gary. Great book. I think everybody should go out and get it. And again, you said you're going to give the first, 50 people?
The first 50, the coupon code is set for 50. So the first 50 that go to my website, GaryGarth.com, elevate.io, type in the coupon Inner Edison. They will get the book discounted from $30 to $0.
All right. So, Gary, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody else for watching. And if you're listening to it, if the best thing you can do to help us out here is just go to our YouTube channel and also online subscribe and leave us a review. Gary, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks again for having me. Pleasure.